Captain Alex Chen had attended precisely 0 warrior tournaments in his 12-year military career, and he planned to keep that record intact until Lieutenant Rodriguez decided that cultural exchange obligations trumped personal preference. Which was how Alex found himself in the observation gallery of Kepler Station's combat arena, watching representatives from 14 different species demonstrate why their particular approach to organized violence was superior to everyone else's. "This is educational," Rodriguez said, settling beside Alex with obvious enthusiasm and a bag of something that claimed to be popcorn but smelled like ozone. "Look at the Centaurian blade work. Those twin sabers create attack patterns that would be impossible for single-weapon fighters to counter." Alex watched the Centaurian warrior flow through a series of strikes that seemed to defy several laws of physics while her opponent, a hulking Ursinian with natural armor plating, attempted to close the distance for grappling. Educational, Alex agreed, though he was thinking that most of these demonstration fights had more to do with showing off than actual combat effectiveness. "The Kithra delegation is supposed to demonstrate next," Rodriguez continued, consulting his program with the attention most people reserved for religious texts. "Commander Vexera Thyss of the Shadow Guard. They say she's never lost a formal challenge." Alex looked toward the staging area where the Kithra delegation waited with the kind of disciplined patience that suggested serious military training. The Kithra were impressive by any species standards, tall, graceful, with the elongated ears that marked them as clearly non-human but possessing a martial bearing that transcended species boundaries. Their commander stood slightly apart from her subordinates, her attention focused not on the current match but on something only she could see. Commander Vexera Thyss was exactly what Alex would have expected from the reputation preceding her, controlled, alert, and radiating the kind of quiet confidence that came from knowing exactly what you were capable of accomplishing in any given situation. Her dark hair was arranged in the complex style that indicated senior rank among her people, and her ceremonial armor bore the subtle markings that spoke of real combat experience rather than parade ground decoration. "Impressive delegation," Alex observed, noting the way the other Kithra deferred to her without obvious subordination, the mark of leadership earned rather than inherited. "The Shadow Guard are supposed to be the elite of their military," Rodriguez said. "Special operations, diplomatic protection, the kind of assignments that require both tactical brilliance and cultural sensitivity." The current match concluded with the Centaurian's victory, her opponent yielding when it became clear that his armor advantage couldn't overcome her speed and precision. As the arena's maintenance systems began preparing for the next demonstration, Alex noticed increased activity in the staging area. "Technical difficulties," announced the arena's automated systems in multiple languages. "Combat demonstration delayed while safety protocols are recalibrated." Alex watched technicians swarm over the arena floor, their movements suggesting more urgency than routine maintenance would require. One of the combat drones used for training scenarios had apparently malfunctioned, its targeting systems locked on active mode while its mobility remained fully functional. "That's not good," Rodriguez muttered, pointing toward the arena floor where a young Eltarian cadet had been conducting equipment checks when the malfunction occurred. The drone had identified the cadet as a target and was advancing with what appeared to be full combat programming engaged. "Where's arena security?" Alex asked, though he was already moving toward the emergency access stairs. "Evacuating the observation areas," Rodriguez replied, following Alex toward the stairs. "They can't risk energy weapon discharge with spectators present." The drone was a military-grade training unit designed to provide realistic combat scenarios without actually killing participants, in theory. In practice, a malfunctioning targeting system could easily turn non-lethal force into deadly assault, especially against a cadet who lacked the experience to evade an opponent that didn't follow predictable patterns. Alex reached the arena floor as the drone was cornering the young Eltarian, its weapon systems charging for what would probably be an incapacitating but potentially fatal energy discharge. Arena security protocols prevented immediate intervention with ranged weapons, and the manual shutdown systems were on the opposite side of the arena from the cadet's position. "Hey!" Alex called, drawing the drone's attention toward himself as he stepped into the arena's center. "Over here." The machine's targeting sensors swiveled toward him, apparently deciding that a human adult represented a more significant threat than an Altarian teenager. Alex used the momentary distraction to motion for the cadet to retreat toward the emergency exits while he assessed the drone's capabilities and vulnerabilities. Military training drones were designed to simulate human-level opponents, which meant they possessed roughly human strength and speed but with perfect coordination and no fatigue limitations. They were also built to be durable enough to survive repeated combat scenarios without requiring constant repairs. What they weren't built for was opponents who understood their programming limitations and mechanical constraints. Alex circled the drone, staying just outside its optimal engagement range while forcing it to rotate and reposition. The machine's movements were fluid and precise, but they followed predictable patterns based on its programming parameters. It was designed to provide challenging but educational combat experiences, not to adapt to completely unexpected tactical approaches. When the drone lunged forward with a combination strike pattern, Alex stepped inside its attack envelope rather than retreating, using the machine's momentum against it as he grabbed its primary weapon arm and redirected its energy toward the arena floor. The impact sent vibrations through the drone's frame, disrupting its balance systems long enough for Alex to reach its manual control panel. The machine's secondary defensive systems activated, trying to shake him off with rapid rotational movements, but Alex had spent years training in hostile boarding actions where enemies weren't concerned about providing educational experiences. He held on while systematically dismantling the drone's weapon systems with techniques that owed more to demolition than martial arts. Targeting system offline, he called to arena security as he ripped out the drone's primary sensor array. Mobility systems compromised. The machine made one final attempt to complete its programmed attack sequence, but without functional targeting or weapon systems, it could only flail ineffectively before its emergency shutdown protocols finally engaged. Alex stepped back from the disabled drone, breathing heavily and realizing that his impromptu demonstration had attracted considerably more attention than he'd intended. The observation galleries were full of beings from multiple species, all watching the human who had just dismantled a military combat drone using nothing but his bare hands and tactical knowledge. But it was the Kithra delegation that commanded his attention, particularly their commander, who was studying him with the kind of intense focus that suggested professional rather than casual interest. Commander Vexera Thyss approached the arena floor with the measured stride of someone evaluating a potential threat or opportunity. Her amber eyes, a common trait among her species, held his gaze with unwavering directness as she spoke. "Captain Chen," she said, her accent lending musical qualities to standard Galactic, that was an impressive display of adaptive combat techniques. "Just problem-solving under pressure," Alex replied, though he was wondering how she knew his name and rank. The drone's programming wasn't designed for non-standard responses. Indeed, Vexera agreed, circling the disabled machine with obvious interest. Most beings would have attempted to match its combat programming with traditional techniques. You chose to exploit its limitations instead. "Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to change what you're fighting about," Alex said. Vexera's expression shifted slightly, what might have been approval, though Alex wasn't familiar enough with Kithra facial expressions to be certain. "An interesting philosophy. I would be curious to learn more about human tactical approaches." "I'm just an instructor, Commander. There are plenty of people more qualified to discuss military strategy. But not many who would step into an arena to protect a stranger from another species," Vexera observed. "That suggests character assessment as well as tactical training." Alex found himself studying her expression, trying to understand whether this was casual conversation or some kind of professional evaluation. Commander Vexera Thyss had a reputation that extended well beyond her own species: tactical brilliance, unwavering integrity, and the kind of leadership that inspired loyalty through respect rather than fear. "The cadet needed help," Alex said simply. Species didn't seem relevant to the situation. "No," Vexera agreed, her gaze holding his with what felt like new understanding. "It did not." As arena maintenance teams arrived to remove the disabled drone and conduct safety inspections, Alex realized that his quiet assignment as a military instructor had just become considerably more complicated. Whatever Commander Vexera Thyss was thinking as she watched him leave the arena, it wasn't casual curiosity. It was the kind of attention that changed things, whether you wanted them to change or not. The formal request arrived through proper military channels 3 days after the arena incident, bearing the official seal of the Kithra Shadow Guard and Commander Vexera Thyss's personal authorization. Alex read it twice, thinking there might be some translation error that would explain why one of the galaxy's most elite military units wanted to consult with a human instructor whose primary qualification was an uncanny ability to teach basic hand-to-hand combat to beings who'd never seen Earth. Tactical consultation regarding human close-quarters combat methodologies, Alex read aloud to Lieutenant Rodriguez, who was pretending to file reports while obviously listening to every word. Request for demonstration and analysis of adaptive techniques observed during recent arena incident. That's either a significant professional opportunity or the beginning of a very complicated situation, Rodriguez observed. Probably both. The Shadow Guard doesn't need to learn human fighting techniques, Alex said, though he was already considering the implications. They've been perfecting their own combat arts for centuries. Maybe that's the point, Rodriguez suggested. You dismantled that drone using approaches that none of their traditional training would have covered. Could be they want to understand how humans think about combat differently. Alex looked at the request again, noting the formal language that couldn't quite conceal what felt like genuine curiosity. Or Commander Thyss wants to figure out whether what happened in the arena was tactical brilliance or dumb luck. Only one way to find out, Rodriguez said cheerfully. Besides, when was the last time you got to work with someone at her level? This could be career-defining. The meeting was scheduled for the following morning in Training Complex C, a facility designed to accommodate multiple species' environmental and safety requirements. Alex arrived early and spent 20 minutes adjusting the gravity, atmosphere, and lighting to optimal settings for both human and Kithra physiology, then another 10 minutes wondering if he was overthinking the entire situation. Commander Vexera arrived precisely on time, accompanied by 2 subordinates who introduced themselves as Lieutenant Kethval and Sergeant Thissa. All 3 wore training uniforms rather than ceremonial armor, but they still managed to project the kind of disciplined professionalism that marked elite military units. Captain Chen, Vexera said, inclining her head with exactly the degree of respect due his rank while maintaining the authority appropriate to her position. Thank you for agreeing to this consultation. My pleasure, Commander, Alex replied, though he was noting that her training uniform revealed the kind of physical conditioning that came from years of serious combat preparation. Though I should mention that I'm not sure how much I can teach the Shadow Guard about fighting techniques. Perhaps, Vexera said, but we are less interested in techniques than in tactical philosophy. Human approaches to close-quarters combat appear to emphasize adaptability over adherence to established forms. Is that a criticism or an observation? Alex asked. An observation, Vexera replied, her amber eyes showing what might have been amusement. And potentially an advantage we have failed to develop sufficiently. For the next 2 hours, Alex demonstrated the principles behind human martial arts while Vexera and her team showed him Kithra blade techniques that emphasized speed, precision, and the kind of flowing movements that turned combat into something resembling deadly dance. What surprised him was how quickly they grasped not just the physical aspects of human fighting methods, but the underlying philosophy. Your species treats combat as problem-solving, Vexera observed as they took a break between training sessions. Each situation requires analysis and adaptation rather than application of predetermined responses. That's probably because humans aren't naturally designed for fighting, Alex said, accepting the water bottle that Sergeant Thissa offered. We don't have claws or natural armor or enhanced strength. We had to get creative. And that creativity led to tactical approaches that more physically capable species might not consider, Lieutenant Kethval added. Interesting evolutionary adaptation. What about Kithra approaches? Alex asked. Your techniques are incredibly sophisticated. Centuries of refinement, Vexera explained, moving to demonstrate a series of blade forms that seemed to flow like water while maintaining perfect lethal precision. But refinement can lead to rigidity if taken too far. Traditional responses to traditional threats. Which don't work when the threats aren't traditional, Alex said, understanding her point. Exactly, Vexera agreed, and Alex caught something in her tone that suggested this wasn't just theoretical discussion. As their training session continued, Alex found himself impressed not just by Kithra combat skills, but by their approach to learning. Vexera absorbed new concepts with the speed of someone accustomed to tactical adaptation, while her subordinates asked questions that revealed deep understanding of combat psychology and battlefield dynamics. Your turn, Alex said after demonstrating several grappling techniques. Show me how Shadow Guard training develops that level of precision. What followed was a display that made Alex reconsider everything he thought he knew about alien martial arts. Vexera moved through combat forms that seemed to defy physics, her blade work creating patterns that were simultaneously beautiful and terrifyingly lethal. But more impressive than her technical skill was the controlled intensity she brought to every movement, the mark of someone who understood that violence was a tool with specific applications rather than an end in itself. Remarkable, Alex said when she completed the demonstration. How long does it take to develop that level of control? For most Kithra, a decade of training after reaching physical maturity, Vexera replied. For Shadow Guard candidates, considerably longer. And for someone like you? Vexera's expression grew more serious. My training was accelerated by practical experience. Combat situations that required adaptation rather than perfect form. Border conflicts. Alex asked, recognizing the tone of someone who'd learned important lessons under pressure. Among other things, Vexera said, her gaze holding his with new directness. Captain Chen, may I ask about your own combat experience? Your techniques suggest more than instructional knowledge. Alex considered how much to share about his background, then decided that professional honesty was probably appropriate. Special operations, mostly. Boarding actions, hostile facility infiltration, situations where standard military doctrine didn't apply. Which explains your approach to the drone malfunction, Lieutenant Kethval observed. You treated it as a tactical problem rather than a combat scenario. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to avoid fighting altogether, Alex said. Though that's not always possible. No, Vexera agreed quietly. It is not. Something in her tone suggested personal experience with situations where fighting had been the only option, and Alex found himself curious about the events that had shaped her tactical philosophy. But before he could pursue the topic, Sergeant Thissa approached with a reminder about the commander's scheduled briefings. Of course, Vexera said, though she seemed reluctant to end the session. Captain Chen, would you be available for additional consultations? This exchange has been illuminating. I'd be honored, Commander, Alex replied, realizing that he meant it. When would be convenient? Tomorrow, same time. Vexera suggested. Perhaps we could explore advanced techniques, situations where human adaptability and Kithra precision might complement each other. As the Kithra delegation prepared to leave, Alex found himself watching Commander Vexera with growing respect and interest. Her combination of tactical brilliance, physical capability, and what appeared to be genuine intellectual curiosity made her unlike any military officer he'd encountered from any species. Captain, Vexera said, pausing at the training room entrance, thank you for sharing your knowledge so openly. In my experience, most beings guard their tactical advantages carefully. Knowledge is only useful if it's applied, Alex replied. And some things work better when they're shared. Vexera's smile was brief but genuine. An interesting philosophy. I look forward to tomorrow's session. After they left, Alex spent several minutes reviewing the day's events and trying to understand why a routine training consultation felt like the beginning of something much more significant. Commander Vexera Thyss was clearly a professional seeking to expand her tactical knowledge, but there had been moments during their session when the conversation felt more personal than purely military. He was probably reading too much into professional courtesy and intellectual curiosity. But as Alex secured the training facility and made his way back to his quarters, He found himself looking forward to tomorrow's session with anticipation that had nothing to do with tactical instruction and everything to do with amber eyes and the kind of controlled intensity that made danger feel like possibility. The attack came during the third week of what had become regular training sessions between Alex and the Shadow Guard team, just as their professional collaboration was evolving into something that felt increasingly personal. Alex was demonstrating advanced grappling techniques to Lieutenant Kethval when the station's emergency alarms began wailing with the kind of urgency that meant real danger rather than routine drills. All personnel to emergency stations, came the announcement in multiple languages. The station is under attack by unknown hostiles. This is not a drill. Alex's combat instincts kicked in immediately, his mind shifting from instructor mode to operational planning as he assessed the situation. Training Complex C was relatively isolated from the station's main population centers, but it was also equipped with emergency communication systems and defensive capabilities. "Commander," Alex said, turning to Vexera, who was already moving toward the facility's tactical displays, "what's our response protocol for multi-species coordinated attacks?" "Depends on who's attacking and why," Vexera replied, her fingers dancing over the control panels to access real-time intelligence feeds. "But first priority is civilian protection, regardless of species." The tactical displays revealed a coordinated assault by what appeared to be extremist factions from several different species, including both humans and Kithra. The attackers had simultaneously struck key infrastructure points throughout the station, suggesting extensive planning and inside knowledge of security protocols. "Separatist Coalition," Lieutenant Kethval identified, his voice carrying the grim recognition of someone who'd encountered similar tactics before. "They're trying to prove that interspecies cooperation creates vulnerability rather than strength. By attacking a facility dedicated to interspecies military training," Alex said, understanding the symbolic significance. "Maximum propaganda value if they succeed." "They will not succeed," Vexera said with quiet certainty, accessing the facility's defensive systems while simultaneously coordinating with station security through encrypted channels. "Sergeant Thissa, establish perimeter security. Lieutenant Kethval, coordinate with human security forces. Captain Chen." "I'm with you," Alex said before she could assign him to a separate position. "Whatever the plan is." Vexera paused in her tactical planning to look at him directly. "This is not your fight, Captain. The attackers are targeting interspecies cooperation symbols, but you could evacuate with other non-essential personnel." "Commander," Alex said, moving to the weapons locker to retrieve equipment appropriate for combat operations, "with respect, anyone trying to prove that cooperation between our species is weakness just volunteered to learn otherwise. The political implications could be severe if a human instructor is killed defending a Kithra facility," Vexera pointed out, though her tone suggested she approved of his decision. "The political implications will be worse if we let extremists destroy what we've been building here," Alex replied, checking the charge on an energy rifle designed for multi-species use. "Besides, you might need someone who understands human tactical approaches if these attackers include human military personnel." Vexera's smile was fierce and approving. "Very well, Captain. Let's show them what cooperation actually looks like." The next 4 hours were a blur of tactical coordination, defensive positioning, and the kind of intense combat that revealed character under pressure. Alex found himself fighting alongside Kithra warriors whose training and instincts complemented his own adaptive techniques in ways that created devastating effectiveness against their attackers. Movement on the eastern approach, Sergeant Thissa reported from her sniper position. Mixed human Kithra assault team, approximately 12 hostiles. Standard flanking pattern, Vexera observed, studying the tactical display. "They're expecting us to respond with traditional defensive positioning. What if we don't?" Alex suggested, already formulating alternatives. Human urban combat doctrine emphasizes mobility and redirection rather than fixed positions. "Show me," Vexera said, and Alex felt a surge of satisfaction at her immediate trust in his tactical judgment. Working together, they developed a defense strategy that combined Kithra precision with human adaptability. Instead of establishing static defensive lines, they created fluid response patterns that allowed them to appear where attackers didn't expect them while disappearing from positions that came under concentrated assault. The effectiveness was remarkable. Alex's ability to improvise solutions to unexpected problems merged seamlessly with Vexera's tactical precision and her team's disciplined execution. When extremists breached the facility's outer perimeter, they found themselves facing defenders who seemed to anticipate their moves while responding with techniques none of them had trained to counter. Their withdrawing, Lieutenant Kethval reported as the final assault wave retreated toward the station's docking bays. Casualties minimal on our side, significant losses among the attackers. Pursuit? Sergeant Thissa asked, though her tone suggested she knew the answer. Negative, Vexera decided. Our priority was defense of the facility and civilian protection. Both objectives accomplished. As the immediate crisis passed and emergency response teams arrived to secure the area, Alex found himself standing beside Vexera in the facility's command center, both of them breathing heavily from the sustained combat and tactical coordination. That was incredible, he said, reviewing the tactical recordings that showed their improvised defense strategy in action. I've never fought alongside anyone who could adapt that quickly to completely new approaches. Nor have I, Vexera replied, her amber eyes reflecting what might have been surprise at her own admission. Your tactical instincts and our operational capabilities, the combination was highly effective. More than the sum of our parts, Alex agreed, then paused as he realized the implications of what they'd accomplished. Commander, what we just did. That level of coordination, that integration of different tactical philosophies, it's not something you can just teach in training sessions. No, Vexera said quietly, her gaze holding his with new intensity. It requires trust, understanding, and compatibility that goes beyond professional collaboration. The moment stretched between them, heavy with implications that neither was quite ready to address directly. But before either could speak, Lieutenant Kethval approached with after-action reports that required immediate attention. Commander, he said, his tone carrying subtle undercurrents that suggested he'd observed more than just tactical coordination, the station commander requests debriefing on our defensive strategies. Apparently, several other facilities want to implement similar cooperative protocols. Of course, Vexera replied, though Alex caught the slight reluctance in her voice. Prepare the tactical analysis for distribution. And Kethval? Yes, Commander. Include recommendations for integrated human Kithara training protocols. Today's effectiveness suggests significant potential for expanded cooperation. As Kethval moved away to prepare the reports, he leaned closer to Sergeant Thissa and spoke in what he probably thought was a private voice. The commander and the human fought like they'd been partnered for years. Perfect synchronization, complete trust. Yes, Thissa agreed, glancing back toward where Alex and Vexera were reviewing tactical displays together. It was remarkable to observe. Remarkable, Kethval repeated, then added in a tone just loud enough for Alex to overhear, the way they moved together, anticipated each other's actions, almost like they were bonded. That's when Vexera, apparently thinking she was speaking privately to her second-in-command, whispered the words that changed everything, I wish you were mine. The admission hung in the air between them, barely audible but unmistakably sincere. Alex felt his breath catch as he realized that the professional respect and tactical compatibility he'd been trying not to interpret as personal attraction was, in fact, mutual. Vexera's eyes widened as she realized what she'd said and that Alex had heard it. For a moment, the commander of the Shadow Guard looked remarkably vulnerable, her usual composed authority replaced by something that might have been hope mixed with apprehension. Commander, Alex said softly, stepping closer so their conversation couldn't be overheard by her subordinates, did you mean that? Vexera's gaze didn't waver, though Alex could see the internal struggle between her personal feelings and her professional obligations. Yes, she said finally. Though I should not have said it. Why not? Because, Vexera replied, wishing for something and being able to have it are often very different things. Alex looked around the command center, at the evidence of their successful cooperation, at the tactical displays showing how well their different approaches had complemented each other when it mattered most. "Maybe," he said, his voice carrying the same quiet intensity that had made their combat partnership so effective, "but some things are worth finding out about." Vexera's smile was small but radiant. "Captain Chen, are you suggesting that our tactical consultation might benefit from expanded parameters?" "I'm suggesting," Alex replied, "that what happened here today was more than just successful military cooperation. And I'd like to explore what else might be possible when two people trust each other completely." From across the command center, Lieutenant Kethval exchanged glances with Sergeant Thissa, both of them pretending not to notice that their commander was having what appeared to be a very important conversation with the human instructor who had just helped them achieve the most effective defensive action of their careers. Some partnerships, Alex was beginning to understand, were worth fighting for in more ways than one. 3 weeks after Vexera's whispered confession, Alex found himself in the position of conducting the most important negotiation of his career, not with enemy forces or diplomatic representatives, but with his own conflicted feelings about a relationship that seemed both inevitable and impossible. "You're overthinking this," Lieutenant Rodriguez observed, watching Alex pace their shared quarters like a caged predator. "She told you she wished you were hers. You told her you wanted to explore possibilities. Normal people would call that mutual interest and proceed accordingly. Normal people don't have to navigate interspecies romantic protocols while maintaining professional military relationships," Alex replied, pausing at the viewport to stare out at the stars. "And normal people don't fall for commanders of elite alien special forces units." "Fair point," Rodriguez conceded. "But abnormal people get to have abnormal adventures. Besides, from what I've observed, Commander Thyss is dealing with the same complications." That was true. Over the past 3 weeks, Alex and Vexera had continued their training sessions and tactical consultations, but there was a new tension between them, the kind of careful awareness that came from two people trying to maintain professional boundaries while navigating feelings that transcended those boundaries entirely. "The new assignments came through this morning," Alex said, finally voicing the concern that had been keeping him awake for days. "Earth Command wants me back for advanced instructor training. Permanent position, significant promotion, opportunity to develop curriculum for the entire Special Operations training program." "That's huge," Rodriguez said, though his tone suggested he understood the implications. "Career-defining opportunity. And Vexera received orders for a deep space reconnaissance mission," Alex continued. 18-month deployment to the Outer Rim, establishing new Shadow Guard operations in unexplored systems. The kind of assignment that makes or breaks senior military careers. "So you're both facing the choice between career advancement and whatever this is between you," Rodriguez said, understanding the dilemma immediately. "Except it's more complicated than that," Alex said, finally turning away from the viewport. "This isn't just about personal feelings. What we've developed here, the tactical integration, the cooperative protocols, the proof that human and Kithra military approaches can enhance each other, that has strategic implications for both our species. You think Command is deliberately separating you? I think Command is offering us both exactly what we would have wanted 6 months ago, before we discovered that some partnerships create possibilities neither person could achieve alone." The conversation was interrupted by a communication request from Vexera, her image appearing in holographic display with the composed professionalism that had become familiar over their weeks of collaboration. "Captain Chen," she said, though Alex caught subtle signs of tension in her expression. "Are you available for immediate consultation? We have a situation that requires both our perspectives." "On my way, Commander," Alex replied, already reaching for his uniform jacket. He found Vexera in the Shadow Guard Tactical Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing intelligence reports and strategic assessments. Her subordinates were engaged in rapid analysis of what appeared to be a developing crisis, but Vexera's attention was focused on a specific set of data that made her expression increasingly grim. "What's the situation?" Alex asked, settling beside her at the main tactical display. "Border skirmish in the Kepler periphery," Vexera replied, manipulating the holographic images to show fleet positions and contested territories. Mixed human Kithara colonies under attack by unknown forces using advanced technology. Both Earth Command and the Shadow Guard are being tasked with joint response operations. Alex studied the tactical situation, immediately recognizing the complexity of coordinating military forces from different species with different operational doctrines. Joint response means integrated command structure. Exactly, Vexera said, her amber eyes meeting his with new intensity. And both our governments have specifically requested that we serve as liaisons for the operation, based on our demonstrated effectiveness during the station attack. So instead of being separated by our new assignments, we're being asked to work together on the most important joint military operation in recent history, Vexera finished. Alex, this mission could define the future of human Kithara military cooperation for generations. Alex felt something settle in his chest, a combination of relief and anticipation that had nothing to do with professional opportunity and everything to do with the woman standing beside him. That sounds like a significant responsibility. It is, Vexera agreed. And there's something else you should know. She manipulated the display to show personnel assignments for the joint operation, highlighting specific command positions that made Alex's eyebrows rise toward his hairline. Co-commanders, he asked, reading the organizational chart with growing amazement. Joint operational authority, Vexera confirmed. Equal rank, shared command responsibility, integrated decision-making. The kind of partnership that requires absolute trust and perfect coordination. The kind of partnership we've already proven we can handle, Alex said, understanding the implications immediately. Yes, Vexera said softly. Though I should mention that accepting these assignments would mean requesting transfer to permanent joint operations status. We would be working together not just for this mission, but for the foreseeable future. Alex looked around the tactical center, at the evidence of Kithara military excellence and the displays showing the crisis that required their combined expertise to resolve. Then he looked at Vexera, whose composed expression couldn't quite conceal the vulnerability underneath. Commander, he said, using the formal address even though they were essentially alone, can I ask you something personal? Of course. When you said you wished I were yours, what exactly did you mean? Vexera was quiet for a moment, her gaze steady on his face as she considered how to answer. I meant, she said finally, that I've never fought alongside someone who understood my tactical instincts so completely, never worked with someone whose capabilities complemented mine so perfectly, and never trusted anyone so completely in life-or-death situations. And personally, Vexera said, stepping closer so their conversation couldn't be overheard, I meant that I've developed feelings for you that go far beyond professional respect or tactical appreciation. I meant that I've fallen in love with a human warrior who treats violence as a tool for protection rather than conquest, who sees cooperation as strength rather than weakness, and who makes me want to build something lasting together. Alex felt his heart rate accelerate in ways that had nothing to do with combat adrenaline. Vexera, I need you to know that everything you just said is mutual. The tactical trust, the professional respect, the personal feelings, all of it. Even knowing that choosing this path means accepting all the complications that come with interspecies relationships in a galaxy that's still learning to trust cooperation. Especially knowing that, Alex replied. Because what we've built here is worth defending, worth growing, worth taking risks for. Vexera's smile was radiant with relief and joy. Then you'll accept the joint command assignment. On one condition, Alex said, reaching out to take her hands in his, the first deliberately intimate contact they'd shared. Which is that we stop calling this a professional partnership and start calling it what it actually is, two people who've discovered that some connections transcend species boundaries and create possibilities that neither could achieve alone. Alex Chen, Vexera said, her accent making his name sound like music, are you formally requesting to court a Kithara warrior? I'm formally requesting to build a life with a remarkable woman who happens to be the most capable military officer I've ever encountered, Alex replied. Court her, serve alongside her, love her, and probably learn a lot more about Kithara customs than I ever expected. The learning process might be challenging, Vexera warned, though her eyes were bright with happiness. Kithra romantic customs are quite different from human approaches. I'll adapt, Alex said, pulling her closer. I'm good at adapting. Yes, Vexera agreed, rising on her toes to kiss him with the same controlled intensity she brought to everything else. You are. From across the tactical center, Lieutenant Kethval exchanged satisfied glances with Sergeant Thissa as they pretended to focus on their intelligence analysis rather than their commander's obvious happiness. The joint command assignments, Kethval observed quietly, should prove very effective. Indeed, Thissa agreed. Though I suspect their effectiveness will extend beyond purely military cooperation. The best partnerships usually do, Kethval replied, watching as Alex and Vexera began reviewing the mission parameters with the kind of synchronized attention that suggested perfect professional compatibility. Some bonds are forged in training, others in combat. Theirs was forged in both. 6 months later, as Alex and Vexera concluded their first joint mission with complete success and began planning for expanded human-Kithra military cooperation, they stood together on the observation deck of their shared command ship, watching stars will past and discussing both tactical possibilities and personal plans for shore leave. Any regrets? Vexera asked, settling against his side with the comfortable intimacy that had developed between them through shared challenges and mutual trust. About which part? Accepting joint command, learning Kithra military protocols, or falling in love with someone who could probably defeat me in single combat with both hands tied behind her back. All of it. Any of it. Alex considered the question seriously, thinking about the path that had led from reluctant tournament observer to co-commander of the most successful interspecies military unit in galactic history. No regrets, he said finally. Though I still think you're completely crazy for deciding I was worth pursuing based on watching me dismantle a training drone. Not crazy, Vexera corrected, her amber eyes reflecting the stars beyond their viewport. Observant. I saw someone who would step into danger to protect a stranger, who could think tactically under pressure, and who treated cooperation as strength rather than weakness. Everything else we discovered together. Including the fact that you fight like poetry and I fight like engineering, but somehow we make it work. Especially that, Vexera agreed, turning in his arms to face him directly. Alex, do you know what the most remarkable thing about our partnership is? That we haven't accidentally started an interstellar incident yet. That we've proven something both our species needed to learn, that the best victories aren't won by overwhelming force or perfect technique, but by two people who trust each other completely and are willing to adapt, improvise, and overcome whatever challenges they face together. Alex kissed her, thinking about arena fights and whispered confessions, about tactical coordination and personal revelation, about the moment when professional respect had become something infinitely more valuable. I love you too, he said, and Vexera's laughter was pure joy, harmonizing with the gentle hum of their ship's engines as they traveled toward whatever challenges and opportunities the galaxy might offer to two warriors who had discovered that the most important battles were the ones you didn't have to fight alone.